We think of cults as distant anomalies, stories of charismatic madmen in far-off jungles. But sometimes, the most terrifying monsters are not masterminds, but teenage con artists who tell a lie so potent it takes on a life of its own. In 1961, in the forgotten Mexican village of Yerba Buena, a story unfolded that was not about a single evil leader, but about how easily belief can be twisted into a weapon, and how a simple scam for food and shelter can spiral into a nightmare of ritual sacrifice and mass murder. The garbled versions of this tale you find online speak of a hypersexualized high priestess of blood. They are wrong. This is a story about two teenagers who played with fire and ended up burning down the world around them. This is the story of how a desperate need for meaning became a serpent that devoured an entire village. It all begins in a place outside of time. Yerba Buena, a small farming village in the mountains of Tamaulipas, Mexico, was a pocket of the world, untouched by the 20th century. No roads, no electricity, no voice to the outside world. Its 50 inhabitants lived by the rhythm of the sun and the soil. They were isolated, devout, and profoundly vulnerable. They had no idea that their oblivion was about to be shattered. Not by progress, but by the arrival of two teenage prophets who carried damnation in their words. They were Magdalena and Eleazar Solis, brother and sister, 16 years old, with eyes that held an unnerving certainty. They didn't arrive as conquerors, but as whispers. They spoke of the true religion, the one buried beneath centuries of Catholicism. They claimed to be vessels for the great gods of the Aztecs, reincarnated to usher in a new age. Magdalena, a priestess; Eleazar, a prophet. In a village starved for meaning beyond endless labor, their words were a potent drug. It was a perfect lie, tailored for the forgotten. At first, the cost was small: food, shelter, devotion. But doubt is a stubborn weed. When the villagers demanded proof, the twins orchestrated their first ritual. In the secrecy of the mountain caves above Yerba Buena, they brewed a potion. They claimed it opened the mind to the gods, but in reality, it was laced with peyote and marijuana. As the villagers writhed in hallucinatory trances, the sober twins reinforced their divinity. The line between faith and manipulation had been completely erased. The twins' performance had convinced the most fervent. Among them were two local brothers, Santos and Cayetano Hernandez. Where the Solis twins saw a long-term scam, the Hernandez brothers saw a path to absolute power. They became the cult's enforcers, its high priests. They were not performers. They were believers. It was their muscle that built the temple and the cave, their brutality that silenced the non-believers, and their fanaticism that demanded escalation. The twins had created a monster, and now they were losing control of the leash. A lie can only be sustained for so long. To quell the rising tide of doubt and satisfy the bloodlust of the Hernandez brothers, a new ritual was devised. The gods, they claimed, were no longer satisfied with animal blood. They demanded a human sacrifice. In the drugged frenzy of a midnight ceremony, Cayetano asked for a volunteer to achieve immortality, and someone stepped forward. The twins watched in horror as their theatrical game turned into a real-life bloodbath on a stone altar. The lie was now consecrated in human blood. For a full year, darkness consumed Yerba Buena. What began as a single, shocking act became a routine. At the end of each month, the village would climb to the cave, and one of their own would not return. 12 times, a life was willingly given. The village was now bound by a shared unspeakable. They were addicted to the potion, trapped by fear, and complicit in a cycle of murder and cannibalism. Yerba Buena was no longer a village. It was a wound on the face of the earth, festering in isolation. Every reign of terror has its breaking point. Her name was Selena Silvana. When she was chosen as the next sacrifice, her childhood sweetheart, Hector, could no longer stand by. He broke through the ceremony, pleading, fighting to save her. But the cult's madness was absolute. The crowd turned on them both, and Hector watched, broken and enraged, as the woman he loved was sacrificed. In his grief, a fire was lit. He escaped the cave, vowing that the dawn would bring not another day of horror, but a reckoning. He ran to the police. He became the village's only voice. When Inspector Gomez and his officers arrived, they were met not with farmers, but with fanatics. The ensuing firefight was brutal and swift. The Hernandez brothers died as true believers, and Magdalena and Eleazar Solis were found hiding. Their divine authority exposed as the terrified act of children. But this is where the true 8th chapter begins. The internet found this tale and twisted it, turning Magdalena into a salacious monster and ignoring the truth. And the truth is more disturbing. Monsters aren't always born. They can be made, forged in isolation, fed by lies, and empowered by the complicity of those too afraid to say. If the story of how a simple lie led to a blood-soaked altar made you question the nature of belief, maybe hit that subscribe button, because history is filled with false prophets and forgotten gods, and their stories are always written in blood. And trust me, their chapters are the darkest of all.